Hi! It's only been a couple of weeks since the Eurovision 2023 ended, and with that, we got a very nice data set of votes from juries and from the people from each country in Europe participating in the Eurovision, of course. So let's see what we can figure out. For those of you that don't know, the Eurovision is basically a huge popularity contest among European countries that get together once a year to see who has the best song, the best artist, the best performance. First we have the semifinals, which are determined only by televotes, and then we have the final round, which is determined by a combination of televotes and jury votes. So how does the voting work? Let's first tackle that one. You have people from each country that submit the votes, and the country with the most votes, the most popular one, gets 12 points, the next one gets 10 points, the third one gets 8, and then following 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the countries that didn't get enough votes basically get zeros across the board. And we also have one extra category called the rest of the world. So anyone that's not from the participating countries can also vote, and they get grouped up into the rest of the world category. However, in the final round, we also have the jury vote. Now, the jury basically consists of members from each country, so each country submits their own jury, and that jury also has the same number of votes for each country, so 12 for their favorite one, 10 for the next one, and so on. And then we combine the televotes and the jury votes, and we get the final result. So what I would like to do today is basically go through the results, see what we can figure out, who was the most popular country, who had the best song, who was the fan favorite, who was the jury favorite, and what can we figure out about the country dynamics in Europe based on Eurovision results alone. It's a bit of a stretch to say we can determine any geopolitical relationships, however, we can have some fun with the data. Now let's look at the numbers. This is Group A, the first semi-finalists. 15 different countries. We also have 3 countries participating in the voting: Germany, France, and Italy. They're voting because they're direct finalists, and 3 of them get to vote in this semi-final round, and the second part of the direct finalists get to vote in the second semi-final round. So each country can get a maximum of 228 points, and we have 1,102 points altogether across all the countries. So here were the results. Finland decisively won the first semi-finals with 16% of the total vote, of the total score, going to Finland. Sweden follows that with 12. Then we have Israel, the Czech Republic, Moldova, Norway, Switzerland, Croatia, Portugal, and the last candidate to make it through the semi-final round A is Serbia with just 3% of the total votes, but it was just barely enough. 4 of the countries are needed to get to the 50% of the total vote, and 7 countries are needed to get to 75%. Why is that important? Because we can see how skewed the total result is. So the top 4 countries basically gathered up 50% of the total points. Now, if we just take the countries that voted 12 points or 10 points and see who voted for who, for Finland, 7 countries thought they were the best performing act. An additional 5 countries thought they were number 2, but only 2 countries thought that Sweden had the winning performance. Sweden did have 4 countries voting 10 points, and in the third place was Israel with 4 best friends, all giving Israel 12 points each. And we have 2 additional abnormalities, let's call them. We have Norway. No one thought that Norway was gonna win, but a lot of countries thought that Norway deserved the number 2 spot. And then we can also see the Balkan brothers. So Serbia gave 12 points to Croatia's performance, but Croatia only gave 10 points to Serbia because their 12-pointer went to Finland. And that moves us on to group number 2. In group number 2, we had 16 participating countries and 3 additional countries that got to vote in the second semi-final round. Those were Spain, Ukraine, and United Kingdom, yeah. And we also had one category, rest of the world, the same as in the first semifinals. In this case, because we had 16 participants, the max possible score per country was 240, and the total number of all points was 1,160 points. We can immediately see a slightly less skewed result. We can see a more gradual decline from Australia, which got the most number of points, to Estonia, which also made it through to the final round, and then we have the tail end, which got barely any votes, but still all the countries that made it through got a decent amount of total votes. And we can also confirm that by looking at the number of countries needed to get us to 50% of the total vote. We need 5 in this case, and the number of countries needed to get to 75% of the vote. That's 8 countries in total. From a best friends perspective, it's way less skewed, so way less countries thought that one single country dominated this bracket. Australia only had 3 countries, giving them the number 1 spot. We can see an attempted Balkan brotherhood between Albania and Slovenia in this case. However, only Slovenia gave 12 points to Albania. Albania gave their points to someone else. So, yeah. Thanks, Albania. And here we have it, the final ranking of all the semi-finalists. Even if we combine the result, we can immediately tell that Finland won it hands down. followed by Australia and Austria from the second semi-final round, and then we have Sweden and Israel. And can you spot the odd one out in this graph? That's right, that's Serbia, with only 2% of the total vote if we combine both semi-final rounds, but they still made it through. Great job, guys, just barely made it. And here are the countries that sadly didn't make it. Better luck next time. So now we have our finalists. We have 26 countries that are participating in the final round of the Eurovision 2023. Each country has their own jury vote and their own televote. Plus, we also have one additional country or group of people voting called the rest of the world. So anyone that's not participating in the final round still gets to vote, and it gets counted towards the rest of the world category. 900 is the new max possible, with 4,350 points in total. Let's see what happened. First, let's just look at the finals. If we only counted the televotes, you can immediately see there's a clear fan favorite. 17% of the total vote, or 376 points in total, was awarded to Finland. But granted, it wasn't just Finland that cha-cha-cha'd their way into people's hearts. Following that, we have Sweden and Norway, also with a very high number of points. Also in the green candles, we can see Ukraine, Israel, and Italy. And then we have a slight decline to the 5 and 4 and 3%ers. Even with 26 countries, we only need 5 of them to make it to 50% of the total score. So a huge curve, and 9 of them are needed to get to 75% of the vote. Now let's deep dive and see who gave 12 points or 10 points to each country. Finland basically won it all. There's no other way to say it. 18 countries in total out of the 26 thought Finland won, with an additional 9 countries giving them 10 points. Sweden didn't get any 12 pointers, only 10 points. 8 individual countries granted them the second place win, but still no one gave them 12 points. Norway got 12 points. Ukraine got 4 countries giving them 12 points. Even Italy got 2 countries giving them 12 points. Sweden got 0. So if you look at the next 8 countries following the first 9, we can see that only 1 or 2 countries gave them 12 or 10 points. So not a lot of people thought that they might win. However, if we look at the bottom 9 countries in the final round, here we have our friendless countries. So countries that didn't get any 12 points, any 10 points, you could definitely do better. Switzerland, Estonia, Australia, Austria, Portugal, Serbia, Germany, United Kingdom, and Spain. You could do better. But wait, we also have our jury votes. Now, before we were only looking at the televotes. Now let's look at how the juries voted. The jury, hands down, gave it to Sweden. It wasn't even close. Not even close. Israel, in the second place, barely got 50% of the votes of Sweden. Barely. Italy, Finland, Estonia, also quite high compared to Israel, but nowhere in sight compared to Sweden. And then we have everyone else. Even though there's a huge favoritism towards Sweden because no one else got nearly as much votes, we need 6 countries to get us to 50% and we need 11 countries to get us to 75%, but Sweden alone got 16% of the total vote. That's wow. Just wow. Now let's look at the best friends graph. We have Sweden. 15 countries out of the 26, 15 juries gave Sweden 12 points, with an additional 8 countries giving them 10 points. So more than half of all the juries in all the countries participating in the final round of Eurovision 2023 thought Sweden, hands down, deserved the win, which is in contrast to the televotes that we saw before. Granted, Israel also got 5 countries voting for them for the number 1 spot. Finland only got 2, the Nordic friends, Sweden and Norway. And now we move to the second group of all the countries where hardly anyone got any 12 pointers or 10 pointers, similarly to what we saw in the televotes. And then we have the last group of countries with Portugal, who got 10 points from Greece, and Slovenia, which got 12 points from Serbia. Hvala, brate. So now we get to the final ordering of all the countries. We combine our televoting score that we saw before with the jury vote, and we get the final ranking. With Sweden taking 13% of all the votes and getting the number 1 spot, Finland following that with 12% of the total votes in the number 2 spot, Israel is in 3rd and Italy in 4th. We need 8 countries to get us to 50% of the total votes, and 13 countries, or exactly half, to get us to 75%. But wait, we really focused on the discrepancy between Sweden and Finland for the jury votes versus the televotes. But what about everyone else? Let's look more precisely into the jury votes and televotes to see what we can figure out. Here we have the televotes in red and the jury votes in blue. Can you spot the biggest differences? No need, I ranked them for you. So, going from left to right, we have countries that are in the red area benefited from an excess of jury votes. So they got more votes from the jury side compared to the televotes. And we have countries in blue that got more televotes compared to jury votes. And you can immediately see that Estonia, Australia, Sweden, Spain, Austria benefited heavily from the jury scoring. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have Finland, Norway, Ukraine, and Croatia all benefiting heavily from the televotes. So people love those countries, the jury not so much. And now we come to the last thing that I wanted to check. The alignment coefficient. What is that, Giga? I'm glad you asked. So first, let me explain. Because we have this double voting mechanism, we can think of each country getting 12 points from their televotes and 12 points from their jury votes. And if the same country gave them 12 jury points and 12 tele points, we can sort of say that the country is internally aligned. So the jury was aligned with the thinking and rationale of their residents. But in some cases, the jury voted completely differently compared to the televotes from that country. We need to compare the differences between the televote and the jury vote for each country. Let's take the winners, Sweden, for the example. We have Sweden, and at the top in the red we have televotes, and in the bottom blue we have the jury votes. Now let's see what are the differences between the jury votes and the televotes. We sum up the differences and come to a number, in this case 42. So now we have the, let's call them discrepancy points. 42 discrepancy points. Now we just divide that with the total number of discrepancies possible. In this case, we get 42 out of 116, which is 36%. That is the level of discrepancy, or the level of alignment would be 1 minus 36%, which is 64%. So the alignment coefficient for Sweden would be 64%. Got it? Great. Okay. So now let's take the alignment coefficient of each country and rank them from most internally aligned to least internally aligned and see what we can figure out. Before you, in green, are the GigaChat legends. So these are the countries where the jury was most aligned with the televotes of that same country. We have Armenia in number 1 spot, 72% internal alignment for Serbia, followed by Sweden that we saw in the example, 64, Malta, Estonia, Norway, France, and Azerbaijan, all the GigaChads of Eurovision 23. Then we have the not bad squad, moving us from Israel to Cyprus, and then we have the At Least You Tried gang. We're looking at ranges from 34 to 43. In the words of a famous Russian Alibaba reviewer, not terrible, not great. And then we come to the countries in red, the clown jury. Here, these are the least internally aligned countries, ranging from Italy with 33%, 1/3 of total alignment, all the way down to 17% only for Germany. They might be the most organized country in Europe or the most efficient and rational or whatever, but when it comes to song preference and musical taste, they are the least internally aligned of all the Eurovision countries. I don't know how to fully interpret that result, but Germany, you need to do better. Or select a different jury, I don't know. Be besser. Ja, gut. So here again, just the full ranking so you can see and appreciate exactly the total range from Germany all the way to Armenia with 74%. So the last segment is called Tinder for Countries. If countries, as they were on Eurovision, participated on Tinder, would they swipe right? The first one, Balkan Brothers. Croatia and Slovenia both gave each other 12 points in the final round. Hvala, brate. And then we also have some Nordic love. From the jury's perspective, Sweden gave 12 points to Finland and Finland's jury gave 12 points to Sweden. But if we look at the televotes, Finland gave 12 points to Norway and Norway gave 12 points to Finland. So Sweden was sort of left out in that one, but yeah, still a lot of love in the Nordics. Well done. The last one that surprised me a bit was Poland and Ukraine. So, Sweden won. We didn't get to cha-cha-cha in the finals, even though a lot of people thought they had the gusto, the winning sparkle, the magic dust. They had the gusto, prevardo, the gusto. So with that, I think it's time to end. It's been long enough. Thank you very much for sticking it out. I hope you learned something interesting. And if you like the video, if you like the content, consider leaving a like. If you want to see more of it, subscribe. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you and cha-cha-cha.
Mamma, you belong more.
Bye-bye.